Hello, I'm Thomas Willeford, and this is Meet Your Maker. When I'm teaching people how to make things, especially steampunk or found object art, one of the questions I get asked so many times is, what is my favorite tool? Or what tools should I get first? Honestly, the first one you should get, probably a Dremel rotary tool. This one's kind of fancy, it's got this part on it, but it'll do almost everything you need. It's just a little slower at some things. And you'll eventually get beyond this. I never stop using it. You can cut, you can sand, you can grind, you can sharpen, all that stuff with a rotary tool. I have just absolute hordes of bits and bobs to go on here. This one I've had for a couple of years too, and they'll last. This one's an actual Dremel. You can get the other brand. Depends on how much you're going to use it. The more you're going to use it, the better you're going to want. Most necessary tool. But a close second, hold on, I'll get it. Oh my God, is a drill press. I've had this drill press for over 20 years, and I abuse the living daylights out of it. I do things with it that it's never meant to do. But a drill press is one of the most useful things you can have. And I'm going to show you a few techniques. First of all, just how to use a drill press, and then some things that you might not have thought of. There are a couple things that one little thing will be worth it to you to watch this entire video. I'm going to go over the basics of your drill press. It's not plugged in, because I'm not going to do that just now. Here's your on off switch right here. They're generally on the front, generally near here. This brings the chuck. That's Chuck. Say hi to Chuck. This brings the chuck up and down. The chuck holds the bit, so you can do that. It gives you a lot of leverage to do it. Makes it nice and strong, and you can go nice and smooth with bringing your bit up and down. Here's the platform. That can be moved out of the way. Also, it supports your piece, like that. On the other side, this is an adjustment, so you can make it so it only goes down so far, only comes up so far, that type of thing. You can do things to make it stay down, little tricks of it. This is the adjustment for the platform, to bring it up and down. Here are the speed adjustments, and it tells you how to do that all here. If you have it going from this big one to a small one, every time this turns a bunch of times. That's faster. And as you go smaller to larger, it goes the opposite way. This will go slower, but more torque. All of that is written in the top here. You can also look it up. I almost never use that. I'm going to show you simply how to get this in here. One direction causes these three jaws, they're called jaws, in there to open. So it's open all the way now. Stick this up in there, and I turn this the other direction, and the jaws come together. And I'm turning it a little bit to make sure it's in the right place, it's seated well. Turn that, take this key, stick it in there, and tighten it up. And the first thing I do before I even turn it on is I spin it. If it wobbles, it's not in there correctly. If it doesn't wobble, yay team! I always line up that hole so that it would go, if you go through your piece, it does not hit the metal. That's what you want to do. You want that hole to line up with this drill bit. So it's ready to drill a hole. And I happen to have a piece of wood here. So it's ready to go. Got my piece here. If it's an unwieldy piece, you might clamp it down. Not clamping this one down. There it is. There's your hole. Nice, straight. It's great for making straight holes. That's what you want. You want a hole straight down, you use a drill press. It's the best way to do it. It drills holes. Yes, that's why it's called a drill. But what else can it do? It's amazing. I love that it does all this other stuff. And I'm about to put some other bits and bobs on it. Do this. Remove this. And now, if I put this flapper wheel on here, it's now a sander. Make sure it's nice and straight up and down. First thing I do, turn it always to make sure that it's not wobbling. So now I'm going to hit this, I'm going to sand that off a little bit. Little safety thing. I stare at this. If I'm looking at that, I'm not going to stick my hand in it. It's when you look away, it's when you go, oh, like this. If that's running, I stare at it. I turn it off and I stare at it till it stops running. And then I will put my pieces down or whatever. If I'm working on something bigger and it hits over here, this is still more important than what it hit over there. So I go up, turn it off. When that stops moving, then I check out what happened over there. That's the biggest safety tip I can give you. Always stare at the bit, stare at the blade, stare at the thing that's going to cause you the death. Notice my hair's all pulled back. It's not catching in the drill press. That's because I caught it in a drill press once. You know what it's like to walk around with a 30, 40 pound drill press in your arm because your hair's tangled in it? Because it's gotten, yeah, that sucked, by the way. But yeah, this is great. You put that buffer wheel in there, or not that buffer wheel, the sanding wheel, and take that out. Wire wheel. Wire wheels are great. The great thing about this is, yes, you can use your Dremel to hit something with a wire wheel. That's great. But that means you're holding your piece in one hand and the wire wheel in the other. This way, my wire wheel is held by the stand and I've got both pieces on my hand, so it doesn't go flying off. I've got great control. So I'm going to turn this on. Making it a little shinier, all that. Great for that type of thing. It's really good. And I've got both my hands here. Always have eye protection when you're using a wire wheel because little bits of wire are going to fly off. If you can do a wire wheel, you can do grinding wheels, you can do grinding, you can do all kinds of stuff. I've got these other bits here, sanding wheels, all that type of stuff. Even some Dremel, some of them are small enough that you can put Dremel bits in there. Great thing. Don't put a saw blade. Every once in a while people will put a saw blade in there to cut things. It's a disaster. Do not do that. There's a little thing you can do there. It comes with like the saw blades on these. The wood saw blades, the wood ones with the sharp bits. Don't put it in there. It's a recipe for disaster. I have put the metal cutting bits in there because if they touch your thumb, they will not generally cut you. They'll bounce off. Unlike the meat-eating saw blades that are wood blades. So I try not to do those. But all these other things you can put in there. But this is another one I was showing someone recently. Take this out. This is an edge slicker for leather. There's actually a tool you can buy, which is a leather edge slicking tool for a couple $100 that holds one of those and spins it and all that. Instead, you get to do it this way. I put a bolt through there and a nut here, double nutted. Shh. Double nutted, that's the one nut, keeps the other nut from backing off. Put that in here. Tighten it up. Again, I'm like, that's not going to come, that's not going to wobble. That's good. Here's a chunk of leather. Here's a piece, and maybe that edge needs slicked. Now you put water on it. People have different ways of doing it. I'm just going to show you how to hold this instead of bringing the water into it. This part out of here and show you some other cool things you can do if you're a leather worker and you have a drill press. I need to punch some holes. This is a hole punch. Usually use a hammer on this. Maybe you don't want to make the noise. Maybe it's bad on your wrist. I don't know. I don't know why you want to do this. Like that. right here, line it up, make sure it's nice and tight, and just use the check it. Is it going to put a nice dent in the wood? Yeah, that's good. Put the leather under here, go like this, and you can let go of it at that point. Put two hands on it, and it punches through so quick and easy. No stress on you. It's got plenty of torque to do this. Some people say, oh, you should never do that to your tools. I've been doing this for 20 some odd years with this tool alone. And I've never had, there's no wobble in this. It's all working. Don't listen to them. None of these tools are recommended for this. I mean, I really shouldn't say, you should do this. I'm saying I do this and it works. You've punched all your holes. Now you want to put your rivets in. And you're having a problem where your rivets are going in a little wonky, a little sideways and stuff. Take your rivet setting tool all the way up in there, like that. Tighten it into chuck. This is great if you have a whole bunch of rivets. Make sure it's lined up. Put your piece of wood there because you want to save the metal piece. You put your rivet through the leather. Put the cap on it. Ooh, it's just a little too there. Put it under there and pops it right on there, really smooth. It's also straight up and down. The rivet hasn't shifted or anything. And you just, boop. You can also use that for setting, this is a setting tool for spikes. You can use this to set the spikes. Nice and straight. Bunch of spikes all where you want them. Straight up and down, a lot less tension on you. Just push, push. It's like an arbor press. If you want a hole exactly in a certain place, here's like this. You want a row of holes. So if I want a row of holes 1 inch from the edge, what I'm going to do is put my baby clamp here. Little clamp there. Measure so that it comes to 1 inch from the center of the bit. And I can use a different clamp over here because I don't have to worry about this getting in the way. So if I want a row of holes that way and I don't want to have to mark my wood, this will give it to me so that I can go. And it's just a piece of, that could have been a piece of wood. It just happens to be a lovely piece of L-channel aluminum. But yeah, that'll make it so you can do them really quickly, right where you need them. There I was, minding my own business, thinking, oh my God, I need some other tools. I don't have the money for them. And then I took this, turned this way, and realized I had a lathe. It holds it just right and everything. I was just like, you've got to be me. And so yeah, I'm going to use this as a wood lathe. I'm going to take a small dowel. You can rig up other larger pieces. If I drilled a hole in a larger piece of wood, I could stick this dowel through it and possibly get it to spin. Most likely. Okay, tighten this up. Make sure it's chucked down tight. Make sure your dowel's a little longer than the piece you need. So that way, when the chuck bites into it, you're not biting into your main piece, if you can do it. Again, safety glasses, these are safe enough. You should probably have bigger glasses. So what you're going to do is, before you turn it on, you're going to roll it, make sure this is not wobbling around, just like when you put a bit in, make sure it's not wobbling. It's not wobbling too much. It's got a little curve to it. Some other things you can do. Most people will not take their metal files and do these things. This is a file that works on metal. You can get wood rasps and stuff. See how I created a little ball on the end of there? And that's just for the couple minutes of fooling around. I could make a little bedpost or bed, a scale chair. I could literally just make a ball. If I want to cut it off, easy. Little tiny piece. I used it for a while, and then someone said they wanted fake bullets made, and I thought, oh, I can do white, some wood, and they said, no, I need them made out of brass or metal or something like that because I want them to look right, I want them to weigh right, and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do? I thought, wait a minute, I've got some 3/8" brass rod, so let me see, what do I do? Take that. When you're doing wood and stuff that vibrates, check the chuck often because it'll vibrate loose a little bit. Got this piece of brass rod right here. Put that in there. Tighten it down. Now this rod could be a few inches. I wouldn't go past about 4 inches. Just because you start getting a little wobble at the end of it. None of this is done bearing down on things. Don't bear down on this. Just don't. Here's an idea. So I'm going to make the bullet part there, and then the casing goes to here. Yeah, this will work as a simple metal lathe if you do it right. There it is. It looks like a bullet. And made another one earlier, slightly longer, because I had more brass. So it's a pretty useful thing to be able to use this as a metal lathe. So there's a lot more you can do with it. Most regular lathes also have tooling that goes on this side. We don't have that tooling. I could arrange that tooling, bolting it onto here, start building up things and stuff. You might as well get a lathe after a certain point. But for small pieces like what I just had to do, it's awesome. I mean, I could go on about other things I could make. I made a video a couple years ago about making a cannon, literally a cannon, out of this with this type of setup. But I was doing it vertically. Now that I've got it horizontal, it's so much easier. I can see everything. And it's still just a $50. You could buy this, buy one of these for $50 at a yard sale. And here's what you want to know at the yard sale. Does the motor work? And is this rattling left and right, back and forth? If it's not rattling, that means the bearings are still good in it, and it'll work. It'll do all this. I'm going to take this out. So another little trick you can do with this, when you have it like this configuration, it's great for it. I've beaten up the head of this just a little bit, but I want that to be a nice, shiny, good-looking head for it. Or if it's got, if the slot has been beat up a little bit, you can help trim it down. Put it in here. Again, this is just what you would do in a lathe, but I'm showing you how to do it on here instead. All of you machinists out there with lathes are screaming at me right now, I can tell. No, don't do this, just buy a lathe. Not everyone can buy a lathe. They need it for one project or something, and they're not you. So that's who I'm talking to. Anyway, that's on there. It's nice and tight. Make sure it's tight. Chuck it. Don't beat on it because you don't want to beat up the threads. If you think that you're going to cause a problem for the threads, put this nut up on, well, put this nut of the same thread on above where you're going to put it into the jaws, like that. That way, if it beats up the threads a little bit, when you take this off, it'll fix the threads. The nut will fix the threads behind it. It's easy to do it off. It's hard to do it on. But that will actually help. But anyway, so I've got that there. It's a little beat up. I'm going to hit this. A little bit more. All my hammer marks are out of it. It's now really nice and smooth. So I'm going to hit it with the sandpaper a little bit. Nice and shiny now. Actually, it is. You can hit it with finer and finer sanding grits to make it so it shines. You can make it so it shines like stainless or like chrome if you really wanted to go for it. But yeah, it's all the hammer marks that I put in there are gone. It's all nice and back into a nice shape. Yay! You can put a buffing wheel in here once you get something, you know, really cool made, like a little brass bullet. If you want it to be shiny, you can put some rouge on here. think this is some rouge. Let's see what this does. This isn't even mine. It belongs to one of my interns who was here. And the bullet under there is shinier than it was. This setup makes it a lot easier. For a while I have two drill presses, almost exactly the same. One of them stayed like this all the time. It was just, I didn't even use it as a drill press. I would make tooling that would go on here, clamping onto here, coming out, that I could operate it, because I'd operate from the other side, of course. You can even take this off on some of them and put this on the other side for left-handed use, right-handed use. This whole mechanism turns, so you can pull that out and flip it around sometimes, depending on your piece. And it's been great. I even once rigged one up so it had a foot pedal. So I would push my foot down and it would cause this to move. And I could very gently have both hands on the piece doing this. And for years, that's what I used instead of a lathe. Then I got a lathe. And getting a lathe, I'm not against getting a lathe, but if you're only doing some modeling and occasional stuff and you don't need a lathe all the time, this is an awesome way to overcompensate. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you all for coming by and watching my channel. You're the people who make it worthwhile. I have a great time doing this. I would do it alone, but it would be really sad. If you'd like to, please hit that like button down there. Let me know that you liked what I've been saying as much as I like saying it. Even better if you hit the subscribe button, and that way you can know every time that I'm doing this, and I'll have more subscribers. Yay, it makes me feel better. But also this way, when something comes up, you'll get notification. There's a notification button, a little bell that you can get there. If you'd like to support directly, this would be great. My Patreon is listed in the comments below, and that keeps all these lights going, and makes it so I can expand what I do. Some people don't like the commitment that Patreon requires. There is a little link you can go to below and donate directly to the PayPal that is for my company. I will try to mention all of you and see the little list going down of all the patrons and stuff. I want to thank all of you. Thank you for your help, and I want you all to go forth and make incredible things.